Edelweiss and CNBC TV 18 present Change India, what India needs.
Hello, welcome to Change India. I'm Senthil Chandravarine. The budget perhaps fell short of stretched expectations, but you could argue that the budget is not the only platform for government action. So in the next half hour, while we will dwell a bit on the hits and misses in the budget, we have an expert panel that will discuss what should be the agenda for the government beyond Budget 2014. We could have no one better again than Mr. Rashesh Shah, Chairman and CEO of the Edelweiss Financial Services Group, Mr. Keval Handa, former Managing Director of India, joining me here in the studios, and joining us from our Ahmedabad studio is Mr. Feroz Kambata, Chairman of Rasna Private Limited. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today. Before I get to you, let's listen to some other voices on Budget 2014.
Considering the shortage of time, I think he's done a good job. He has made number of clarifications. He's not gone overboard on anything. He has talked about fiscal prudence. He's talked about inflation control. He's emphasized housing in a big way, infrastructure, manufacturing. He's taken care of some of these issues which were there. I think on the negative, I would say that he's taken a cautious approach. There is no big bang in anything. There is nothing revolutionary. He has still maintained the 51% limit for Indian companies, for banks, for defense sector.
My quick take on the budget, it ticks all the boxes, and more importantly to me, it shows a willingness to listen to what are the challenges, and state that I have listened, we the government have listened, and we will act in due course. To me, that is a statement of intent which I will take entirely at face value, and I believe that in the next 6 months we will see action on this front.
He's actually covered probably the widest spectrum of issues and subjects which have been raised by all sectors in recent times. He's addressed issues which industry is raised, civil society is raised, agriculture is raised, the financial industry is raised, both inside and outside.
The approach of the finance minister and the government has been very comprehensive in looking at the nation in totality. I think besides the tax, which is one part of it, but I think he's covered every section of society. 25 crore investment allowance which is coming down. He's looked at addressing the inverted custom duty issues. He's looked at the excise duty which is brought down on many food processing, many other industrial areas. We are actually happy. It's not a one-time big bang approach.
Well, if I go across to Ahmedabad, and let's get Mr. Feroz Kambata in on this discussion. Feroz, if the objective of the budget was to get confidence back, has he succeeded in doing that?
Yeah, he has done it. If you ask me, from the very fact that we are seeing more interest of the PE players in India, we are seeing more interest of the FII players in India, people believe that we wanted stability, they wanted confidence, and I believe what he has done is he did in Gujarat. What he did in Gujarat is that he created a conducive environment for business. He did this Vibrant Gujarats once in 2 years. He invited the biggest of the names and told them, here is your field. You go and take over. And he is, in my mind, he's always been pro-industry to the extent that he sides with industry. If they are doing a good job, he also wants development. And I think it's a very good and proactive budget which he has given. Of course, there are a lot of negatives. He could have done a lot, and possibly I can spend a lot of time on that. But overall, I think it is a step in the right direction, I would say. Okay.
Rashesh, the expectations were very, very large. Do you think you met the expectation, though? As Feroz says, the initial expectation really was, the pragmatic expectation was that, and as the comment says, that here is someone who will listen. And when I say he, I think I mean both the Prime Minister and Mr. Jaitley, because clearly Feroz talks about the Prime Minister.
See, as usual, we'll always have a few people who will have very stretched expectations. So there was a part of the investor group, or the market expectations from the industry itself, who wanted big bang, who wanted quick change, sudden change, almost like a U-turn from everything India has done. And fortunately, I think he did not follow that. The way I see the budget is, it is more about being very balanced. There's a little bit on it for everything. There is continuity, because he is not completely turned around what the earlier government was doing, and there is still change. And to get this done is always not very easy, and you can't keep everybody happy. But I think on the whole, if you study it, you see that he's covered a large range of issues, a large part of the issues have been covered, and this whole thing, what I call basically balance, continuity with growth is what is achieved. So on the whole, I think broadly a large part of the investor group is fairly happy with this.
Okay. Kevin, let me talk to you as a representative of foreign direct investment. You were chairman of Pfizer, you're on the board of ING and some other companies as well. Has he done enough to get foreign investor confidence, and I don't mean just FII, but foreign direct investor confidence back into the country? Or do you think that the fact that he stopped at 49 and not 51 in certain sectors, do you understand that as a reality, a realpolitik, or would you think that will disappoint?
I think big bang announcements don't materialize. But as a finance minister, he has in control of revenue and expenditure. And what I've seen that is not done enough on the revenue and expenditure. There are things that he has moved forward, let's say insurance from 26% to 49% and defense. Now, it's not going to make any difference doing 49% and then saying that the management control will be Indian control. Now, you are not going that extra length that is required for the investment to happen. And insurance, almost about $3 billion is sitting. In defense, it could be 10 times more than that figure.
Okay, so you are saying foreign direct investor may not bite at this?
Absolutely not. He should have gone that extra mile to make it happen. And this was the opportunity to do it.
Let me stick with another disappointment. Now I'm going beyond the budget. You work in the pharmaceutical industry. Not too long ago, we had the drug control on 108 non-essential drugs. The argument of the government is that healthcare costs need to be brought down, and I agree healthcare costs need to be brought down, but are you disappointed? And does that in some way signal or kind of veer away from what was perceived to be a business-friendly government?
Absolutely. There are only two lines on healthcare. He said that we're going to work on initiatives of free drugs and then the free diagnostic and on TB product. But that's not the challenge of the healthcare today. The greater challenge is lying in the universal health coverage. The greater challenge is finding an alternate to pricing, affordability, accessibility. And if you're going to tinker only with the pricing of products, you are again going back on the promises that you have made, that there was a committee which decided what products to cover, and now you are doing things arbitrarily, which the industry doesn't like. It's absolutely arbitrary measures, uncalled for. You should have taken a holistic view of healthcare and then decided how do you address the healthcare in general.
Let me get that question to you, because there is a feeling that perhaps we have seen the heavy hand of bureaucracy in a number of proposals that were advanced in the budget, especially to do with taxation. I get Pirozin also on that later. Do you think that these are things that will be corrected and not enough attention was paid to them because of the time that they didn't have with them?
Yeah, I think given the time they had, and also I think somewhere NDA, Prime Minister Modi and the Finance Minister, they decided that they don't want sudden change. They don't want sudden, disruption. So I think the larger trend, whether it is through the bureaucracy or otherwise, is continuity. Now, obviously, all of us, and there is a huge need for, very quick change. Let's throw away everything of the past and start changing India. But usually it's very, very disruptive. And I think they are following a more evolutionary bit by bit approach. And I do feel that if you read between the lines, if you see the body language, and if you go outside of all the other things that are happening, I do think that there are some fairly significant structural changes that will happen.
Okay.
Some of that work going on may be invisible, and some of that may remain invisible because it's not always good to announce everything you want to do.
What are the changes that you spot?
See, I think there's a lot of work going on infrastructure, coal and power, which I think over the next 3 to 6 months we'll start seeing the effect of that, especially if you solve the coal problem. And the coal problem is not completely, unsurmountable. It just somebody has to make a few decisions, and I think a lot of work is going on in trying to build some consensus, trying to put your arms around the issue. The second one I think is about getting the efficiency in the decision making of the bureaucracy. It's already started. Prime Minister addressed all these secretaries out there. We're already seeing, when you interact with a lot of people in the government, there is already a little bit of energy, a little bit of saying, okay, now we can get stuff done. Third, broader one is there is this whole approach to saying let's solve the big problems first and not just go after every small problem that is out there, and that I think will be structurally very, very useful.
But some of the statements he made, particularly on the Vodafone case, is now addressing those issues. We are waiting the court to decide, and then we'll take a call.
Can they be addressed? Because these are, can a government forego so much revenue? I mean, good or bad, this is a decision taken by
Look, if I have made a mistake, I should accept it.
Okay.
I should own it and give a good message outside.
But he's giving you the message saying that I am against retrospective tax. Don't force me to take a decision on this so quickly. I'm just playing devil's advocate.
You should have demonstrated that.
And also you should remember a couple of things. One is, and I agree with it, I think NDA has decided that they are not going to really upstage the UPA and say that everything UPA did was wrong, because I think they, instead of having that very divisive politics, they are trying hard to get some consensus so that you can get the parliament to work, get the bills approved. So I think that is one very big decision that is made, that we will not upstage the UPA. So hence they are showing more continuity. The second is to remember that the President of India was the finance minister when this entire retro. So suddenly you come to power and you start throwing all that out and show that it was a mistake, Indian government was at fault, is also not very prudent. But I think if you read between the lines, step by step, slowly this will get diluted away, as we'll get maybe a lot of other things which were more anti-business or anti-investment, whether it's anti-foreign investment, anti-business from a land acquisition point of view. I think a lot of that, it is actually better to dilute them down slowly rather than make very big announcements and then face a lot of opposition on this.
All right. Let me get in on this. Can a government give up its, it can say I'm against retrospective, but can it give up its, which is really a sovereign right. The sovereign right to tax retrospectively is a right.
Sovereign right, I will just tell you the principles of our constitution. We have to all follow the law. Nobody is above law. Okay. And if you ask me, if the highest court of the land gives a ruling on a law, and as government says because we are sovereign, we will go back and we will collect tax or we will collect whatever the money because we have the right to amend the law, it is wrong. If I am the government, let me accept it.
I completely agree.
Collect law. You should start doing from tomorrow.
Well, there was, if anything, if there was something to be said against this budget, and there were lots that have been said, but if there was anybody or any group of people very vocal against things, that was certainly people who were affected by certain tax proposals in the budget. But we'll come back, and when we come back, we'll talk about what needs to be done for administrative efficiency, what needs to be done to increase infrastructure spend, and what needs to be done to resolve various policy and planning bottlenecks. But that's after a break. Stay right there. We'll be back on Change India.
Edelweiss and CNBC TV 18 present Change India. What India needs.
Welcome back to Change India. Before we go back to our expert panel, let's go across to voices from across India.
Exemption limit for the income tax increase is good, and investment look if you have increase is good. It's good for the common man.
Just in 45 days of taking over as government, they have given absolutely mind-boggling budget, and it is very good for the market, very good for the investor. I feel the budget is very good. It is very good for the common man, and even for those who had taken the home loans, they had given the benefit.
Each and every sector of the economy has been touched, has been protected, has been relieved, maybe by way of reducing excise duties, by way of reducing custom duties, as well as FDI in certain sectors has been made 49%. I think we have begun well with a commitment, with a promise that 8.5 months in February 2015, we will come back, revisit that radical, rational, big bang of the budget.
Okay, so that's India saying they're happy with the intent of the budget. We could of course argue about what is contained in the fine print. So since we're calling this beyond budget 2014 cable, what would you now like to see him doing? I think we're running out of time, so let me get that.
I thought there were two areas that he should have addressed it. Now, GST is one area. He could have kick-started GST by reducing CST to 1%. By harmonizing and aligning all the central tax, the excise duties, the custom duties to be part of the GST. That he has missed out a great opportunity. And he could have given an assurance that all the states would be guaranteed for their loss of income. If that would have happened, the GST would have really kicked off. GST is not kicked off. still there is an uncertainty. Now you look at the entire subsidy, 2,55,000 crores of subsidy. You know what is the leakages happening in the food. You know what is the leakages happening in Manegra. You know what is the leakages happening in the oil sector. Not at all addressed. Except for Manegra, he says that it will be unproductive.
Okay.
It will. Now they could have made it partial cash transfer.
Okay, but don't you think the fact that he has agreed, or the government has agreed to not completely discard the UID, in fact has increased budgetary allocation for that, could be a precursor to DBT, direct cash transfers, to be used later?
I guess this is a great opportunity to say that.
Announce it.
To say that we are going to do this. We are going to do a partial transfer, or we are going to issue food stamps. That has been done globally, and it's nothing that you're going to invent.
On direct beneficiary transfers, you would have wanted something more to be
Absolutely, and that would have really built up the confidence of the Modi government in saying this is the budget which is addressing major issues of inefficiency.
Okay. Firoz, if I can come to you, what would you like to see him doing?
I would like to talk on 2-3 things.
Sure.
One is still, I believe the CSR business is very important, because I think industry has come forward and accepted the CSR bill, and I always believe that even without the bill, there are industries who are doing some best jobs, like the best schools in Ahmedabad are owned by private sector, the best education institutes are owned by private sector, the best hospitals. So I believe this whole idea of having a 2% mandatory tax spending is good, but then to say it won't be allowed as deduction, I was not expecting. So I would expect that deduction should be allowed, and on the contrary, they should give a higher tax exemption. Like for example, in ATG now there is a 50% tax exemption to trusts and foundations and charity institutions. They should give a 100% exemption, and this 2% also should be allowed. So to that extent, I would want, let government help us partner with them, and let us give full tax exemptions to this. This is what I believe. Second, as a way forward, I believe the food processing industry is actually the most important industry today in India, because it affects the rural areas. Because if this industry develops, the agriculture develops, and as I always say, the Bangalore's and the Punas have developed because of the IT industry. If you want the villages to develop, we need to develop food processing. And agri and food processing are part of the same coin. Now, no government has understood it. Food processing is treated as a luxury industry. It is taxed highly. The interest rates are like other industry. I believe it is wrong, because actually when we are processing food, we should not be taxed, because actually we are saving food from getting perishable. Today also there are so many foods.
But didn't he touch upon that? He spoke about special infrastructure sector for agri infrastructure. He set up an agri infrastructure fund. He spoke about public-private partnership and setting up warehousing and other infrastructure for. He spoke about setting up agriculture universities. So he did spend a lot of time on all of this.
What if I tell you food processing is not understood as infrastructure in the first place?
Okay.
The definition of food processing does not include infrastructure. So actually speaking, that's what I was trying to explain. That food processing should be treated as infrastructure. Food processing should be treated as one part of the agriculture coin only, because like for example, if you are giving tax benefits for storage, you give tax benefits for even processing, because actually processing is better than storage, because we are adding value and we are saving the crop from getting bad. You see, when the prices of crops go up, today in middle class homes, people buy frozen peas, they buy corn, they buy packed tomato sauces, they buy tep puris. The food process industry is responsible enough that our prices are not increased as much as the fresh product prices have increased.
Okay.
So I think food processing industry should be treated as infrastructure. It should be treated as the same point of agriculture, and this is some very big thing which probably we would like to see in the days to come. I definitely believe.
I can just add there. Actually, the processing industry, some of it is under sector reservation for SSI.
Okay.
Now, if you want to think big, you need to remove that.
Okay.
And put this on the priority list, which was not done.
Okay, Firoz and Keval, I think we must remember what Mr. Kamath said right at the beginning. This is a government that appears to be wanting to listen, so perhaps they will listen to all of this. The last one, what would you like to see him doing?
The most important is to get infrastructure in place. And as I spoke earlier, I think coal and power, they're getting it. The financing for infrastructure, which is a collaborative effort between the government and the Reserve Bank of India to make sure the funds are available, that is falling in place. I think environment clearances are coming, and I think the entire environmental clearance approach we had earlier is also starting to undergo a change. So for the next 1 year, I think infrastructure is going to be the most key item, because if you can get that right, it will have its own spin-off effects on everything else. And yeah, we need to do more on healthcare, on education, on hundreds of other things. But I for one would want to see a lot of effort, and I do believe it is going on, but I would want to see it coming out on the infrastructure front. Okay.
Rashesh, Cable, Feroz, thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back with more Change India. Keep watching CNBC TV 18.
Edelweiss and CNBC TV 18 present Change India.